Have you ever said, "I'm fine," when the truth was sitting heavy in your chest? Have you ever smiled so often that people stopped asking whether you were okay? Kyra Bennett did that every day. She smiled when her feet hurt. She smiled when people left coffee cups on freshly cleaned desks. She smiled when her supervisor asked her to stay late again. And she smiled every time Ethan Cole, the CEO of the company, walked through the lobby without noticing how tired she looked. Kyra wanted him to notice her, not because she knew him well, but somewhere inside her, Kyra believed that if a man like Ethan ever chose a woman like her, it would prove something. It would prove she was not invisible. It would prove she was worth more than the uniform she wore. But one Friday night, while hundreds of people applauded inside a beautiful ballroom, one small button rolled across the floor, and Kyra finally saw the truth she had been avoiding. Kyra worked as a cleaner at Coleridge Tower, a 30-story office building in downtown Chicago. Every morning before sunrise, she stepped off the bus with a paper cup of coffee in one hand and her cleaning badge in the other. By 6 o'clock, she was wiping fingerprints from the glass doors. By 7, she was emptying bins. By 8, employees rushed past her in polished shoes, carrying laptops and talking about meetings. Most of them never looked at her face. Ethan Cole was different. One snowy morning, months earlier, he had stopped near the lobby entrance. Kyra was mopping melted snow from the floor. He looked at her name badge. "Kyra, right?" She froze. "Yes, sir. Thank you for keeping this place running." It was a small sentence. He probably forgot it before he reached the elevator. Kyra did not. She carried those words with her for months. Whenever life felt heavy, she replayed that moment. Slowly, gratitude became admiration. Admiration became a quiet fantasy. Kyra began imagining a life where Ethan saw her as more than a cleaner. She imagined him asking about her dreams. She imagined walking beside him at company events. Sometimes, she even imagined marrying him. She knew it sounded impossible, but the dream gave her something to hold on to. The problem was that Kyra had started believing she needed to become perfect before she could ever be chosen, so she never complained. When her supervisor, Rick, asked her to cover another shift, Kyra nodded. "Sure, I'm fine." When an employee dropped a full cup of coffee on a conference room carpet 10 minutes before Kyra was supposed to leave, she forced a smile. No problem. When her younger sister called and asked why Kyra had missed another family dinner, Kyra stared at the clock on the wall. "I've just been busy. I'm fine." Her sister went quiet. "You always say that?" Kyra laughed softly. "Because I am." But after the call ended, her smile disappeared. That night, inside her small apartment, Kyra removed her cleaning uniform and noticed a loose white button near the collar. Only one thin strand of thread was holding it in place. She found a needle in the kitchen drawer. Then she sat beneath the yellow light above the stove and carefully sewed the button back on. She pulled the thread tight. But 2 days later, the button came loose again. Kyra noticed it in the elevator mirror. She pressed it against her uniform and kept working. That night, she sewed it again. The following week, she repaired it for the 3rd time. She could have asked for a new uniform, but Kyra was used to fixing things quietly, even when they kept falling apart. Then the company announced its annual appreciation night. For the first time, cleaners, security guards, assistants, managers, and executives were invited to the same event. Kyra read the invitation 3 times. The event would take place inside a downtown hotel ballroom. There would be music, dinner, speeches, and awards. Ethan would be there. Kyra knew it was silly, but hope rose inside her. Maybe this was her chance to speak to him again. Maybe this time he would really see her. She spent part of her paycheck on a simple navy blue dress from a department store clearance rack. When she tried it on, she stood in front of the mirror for a long time. For once, she did not see the tired cleaner from Coleridge Tower. She saw a woman who deserved to enter the room without apologizing for being there. On the night of the event, Kyra brought the dress to work in a garment bag. Her shift was supposed to end at 5. The event started at 7. At 4:45, Rick approached her near the service elevator. "We have a problem," he said. 2 people called out. "The ballroom staff needs help with cleanup before guests arrive." Kyra looked at the time. Then she looked at the garment bag hanging inside the supply room. For once, she wanted to say no. Her body was tired. Her feet were aching, but fear spoke first. What if Rick thought she was difficult? What if people stopped appreciating her? What if Ethan walked past her and saw someone who had refused to help? Kyra forced a smile. "I can stay." By 7:15, the ballroom was full. Soft music played from the corner. Waiters moved between tables. Warm lights reflected against the glass walls. Kyra never changed into her dress. She walked between guests wearing her cleaning uniform, holding a cloth and a small spray bottle. Her navy dress remained untouched inside the supply closet. Then Ethan stepped onto the stage. The room grew quiet. Kyra stopped near the back wall. For a moment, she forgot how tired she was. Ethan thanked the staff. He talked about teamwork. He talked about the people who kept the company moving. Then he smiled. "There is one more person I want to thank tonight." A woman in a red dress stood near the front table. Ethan held out his hand. The woman walked toward him. Kyra watched as he looked at her with a tenderness she had never seen before. "This has been an important year for me," Ethan said, "and I'm grateful to share it with my fiancée, Lauren." The room filled with applause. Kyra clapped too. At least she tried. Her hands moved slowly. Her chest tightened. She told herself to smile. She told herself she was fine. Then she bent down to pick up an empty glass near a table, and she heard a tiny sound. The white button fell from her uniform. It bounced once against the polished floor. Then it rolled across the ballroom. Kyra watched it move between polished shoes until it stopped beside Lauren's silver heel. Lauren looked down. She picked up the button and walked toward Kyra. For one terrible second, Kyra wanted the floor to open beneath her. Lauren placed the button gently in Kyra's hand. "I think this is yours," she said kindly. That kindness hurt more than cruelty would have. Kyra stared at the button. She looked at Lauren. Then she looked toward the stage where Ethan was smiling, and something inside her gave way. Not because Ethan was engaged, not only because of that. Kyra suddenly saw how tired she was. She had worked late shifts she did not want. She had missed family dinners. She had ignored her sister's calls. She had been sewing the same button onto the same worn uniform again and again, all because she believed that one day someone important might finally choose her. Kyra walked quickly out of the ballroom. She pushed open the supply room door and closed it behind her. The music became a soft, distant sound. She sat on an overturned bucket. Then she began to cry. Not quiet tears. The kind of tears that shake your shoulders. The kind that comes when your body has been holding too much for too long. Her phone vibrated inside her pocket. Kyra almost ignored it. Then she looked at the screen. It was a voice message from her 8-year-old niece, Ava. Kyra pressed play. A small voice filled the room. "Aunt Kyra, I did the solo at my school concert tonight. I looked for you, but Mommy said you had work. I wish you were there. Kyra covered her mouth with one hand. She had forgotten. Her sister had reminded her twice. Ava had practiced for weeks, and Kyra had missed it to clean a ballroom for people who barely noticed her. She looked at the white button resting in her palm. For the first time, she admitted the truth. I'm not fine. The next morning, Kyra returned to work with swollen eyes and a folded uniform inside a plastic bag. She placed it on Rick's desk. I need a replacement, she said. Rick looked at the missing button. You could sew it back on. Kyra shook her head. I already did. 3 times. Rick stared at her for a second, then reached for a form. It was a small request, but Kyra felt different as she walked away. That afternoon, Rick approached her again. Can you stay late tonight? Kyra almost answered automatically. The old words rose to her lips. Sure, I'm fine. Then she thought about Ava's voice message. She took a slow breath. No, she said. I have somewhere important to be. Kyra left work on time. She bought a small bouquet of flowers. Then she visited her sister's apartment. When Ava opened the door, Kyra crouched down and held out the flowers. I'm sorry I missed your concert. Ava wrapped her arms around Kyra's neck. You can hear me sing it now. Kyra smiled through tears. I would love that. Change did not happen all at once. A few weeks later, Rick asked Kyra to cover another weekend shift. The fear returned. Be helpful. Do not disappoint anyone. Do not become difficult. Kyra almost agreed. Then she touched the collar of her new uniform. The button was firm. She paused. I can help for 2 hours, she said, but I cannot stay all day. Rick nodded. Nothing terrible happened. Slowly, Kyra stopped treating exhaustion like proof of her value. She took a short office administration course at a local community college. She asked questions when she needed help. She visited Ava more often. She still worked hard, but she stopped disappearing inside her work. Months later, Kyra entered the elevator at Coleridge Tower, carrying a notebook from her evening class. Just before the doors closed, Ethan stepped inside. He glanced at the notebook. Taking classes? Kyra nodded. Office administration. That's great, he said. Good for you. The elevator doors opened. Ethan stepped out. Kyra watched him walk away. Months earlier, those few words would have stayed in her mind all day. This time, she smiled and returned to her book. Because the biggest change in Kyra's life was not that Ethan finally noticed her. It was that she no longer needed his attention to feel important. Sometimes we keep sewing ourselves back together with the same tired thread. We keep saying yes when we want to say no. We keep smiling because we are afraid. Honesty will make us harder to love, but you do not have to fall apart before you ask for something better. You do not have to exhaust yourself to prove your worth. And you do not have to be chosen by someone important before you choose yourself. Have you ever said, I'm fine, because you were afraid to admit how tired you really were? Share your answer in the comments. Someone reading your words may need to know they are not alone.